Hey guys, so we are starting a new unit, solving quadratic equations, and we're going to be talking about specifically solving quadratic equations using the square root. I'm going to go into a lot more detail. Sorry, I have the hiccups. I'm going to be going into a lot more detail in future videos, but I just want to give an overview in this video of what we're going to be looking at. So first of all, solving quadratics in general. So first of all, what is a quadratic? We've talked about this before, but a quadratic is a polynomial with a squared term. So this would be an example of a quadratic equation, right? It's an equation because it has an equal sign, and it's quadratic because it has something with a squared term. So this is a quadratic equation. Now, this is what's called, standard form of a quadratic equation. But this is actually not the form we're going to be using when we are solving by taking the square root, because we can't solve by taking the square root if we have an x term. We can only solve by taking the square root if we have just an x squared term. So something like this we could solve by taking the square root, or something like this. Now, yes, I could FOIL this out and I would get something that has this form, but if I have it in this form, then I can solve it by taking the square root. I can also solve something like, this would be the most complicated version. So for example, with this one, I would have to add 6 to both sides, then divide both sides by 3, then take the square root of both sides. So I have to have the squared thing by itself before I can take the square root of both sides. So I'd have to get rid of the 6, I'd have to get rid of the 3 before I could take the square root of both sides, and then I would be able to finish. So I'm not going to actually do a lot of solving in this video. I just wanted to give an overview of what this is going to look like. And basically what you're going to be doing with this is just taking the square root. But there's something very important that happens when we take the square root, because we all know that the square root of 16 is 4, right? 4 times 4 is 16, so the square root of 16 is 4. But 4 times 4 is 16, and negative 4 times negative 4 is 16, right? Remember this? If I multiply two things that are negative, I get a positive number. So this could be 4 times 4, or it could be negative 4 times negative 4. So when I'm taking the square root of both sides, I need to take into account both the positive possibility and the negative. So this is going to be x equals plus or minus 4. And that's always going to be true of quadratic equations. I'm always going to have two answers. So I could write it like this, or I could write it as x equals 4 or negative 4. I can write it that way as well. But I'm always going to have two answers, but they might not be the same number. So there's always going to be two answers, but they might not be the same number. So let's look at this side, this equation for an example where they're not the same number. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides again. And then I'm going to say, so the squared and the square root cancel each other out. So I have x plus 5 on this side. And I have plus or minus 25. Nope, I have plus or minus the square root of 25, which is 5. So I have plus or minus 5. Now I have two cases here. I have two cases. I have the case where x plus 5 equals 5, and the case where x plus 5 equals negative 5, and I need to solve both of them. I need to solve both of them, and I can solve them in the same way. I can subtract 5 from both sides. 5 minus 5 is 0, so I get x equals 0, and subtract 5 on both sides here, and I get x equals negative 10. So here I still have two answers, right? X equals 0, x equals negative 10. But unlike here, where they were just plus and minus the same number, here they're very different numbers. So they're not always going to be plus or minus the same number. That only happens if we have x squared by itself equals something by itself. Yeah, so this has been an intro to solving quadratics using taking the square root. I will go into more depth in other videos. This has just been an introduction. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video.